Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with California Dairy Magazine, reporting to you from Chowchilla, California. Here we just had a great dairy robotics field day. I'm here with Camila Lage from Cornell Cooperative Extension in New York. It's really exciting to have you here in California, and California is not so new to you as far as the work that you've done with the UC Cooperative Extension as well, right?
So I'm not new to California. I had the opportunity to live here a year while I was doing my postdoc with Daniela Bruno on the AMS project. So I was actually participating on the research team when we were doing this project together.
And it's a great project because dairy producers are really, their budgets are tight, and we've got increasing labor costs, and so taking a more serious look at investing in robotics and automating our dairy milking systems, and so I wanted to talk with you today specifically about, as dairy producers consider investing in automation, what kind of production changes, are they going to experience based on you conducted a survey? What were the results?
So on our research, we interviewed like just kind of large dairies, so dairies that had like 7 or more robots, and we had people all across the board from like having just transitioned to the robots or like having more experience long term with robots. And so when we asked them about production, we asked them about composition, so fat, protein, and somatic cell count, and just like milk production in general. And as far as like composition and somatic cell count, we had a very different results. So some people reported like increased, some people like most of people report like it didn't change, and some people said, oh, it got like slightly worse. And today, talking here with Greg, we understood that he said it takes like a year for you to kind of, actually make your
Assessment.
yes, your assessment and get used to the new system. And it pretty much depends on which system you had before. So some people had very, very like old facilities before and some other not. So that's why it's so different. But as far as milk production, we saw like a majority of people, like 70% of the respondents, saying they saw increases in milk production, which included people that had 2x milking and people that had 3x. So Greg, for example, already milked the cows 3 times a day and still saw an increase in milk production. He said it's because with the new facility and more like investment in cow comfort, it really paid off.
Now, with the robotic systems, are they still milking the same amount, or is it different because they don't have to have the crews going in there? They're just kind of going in on their own, right?
Yeah, of course. So in the robots, the cows has to go by their own, but usually the setup still kind of allow them to go usually around 3 times a day. So this would be exactly the same as like a farm that run 24/7 and has like a 3x. So you can, have this benefit of maximizing the times they go to the robot without having the labor. And the nice thing about like robots is because you can adjust the milking permits, so you can actually kind of permit your cows that are in the early lactation to go more than 3 times, like 5 times, which there are studies that show that if you can do that in the beginning of the lactation, you can, increase the peak. So just the difference in like getting the cows that are producing milk to go more time, and then maybe your cows that are not giving that much milk don't need to go 3 times, they can go 2. You can, maximize the milk production of the herd because you are kind of precision, adjusting who should be milking more than others. So that's a nice thing to have, I guess, for farmers.
Right, and we see that animal welfare overall, as the cows are more comfortable, kind of doing it on their own and as they please, right? And so that's also a factor, right, in getting more production out of them, right?
Yes, of course. We hear a lot of producers that switched from 3 times that had to push cows, have them on like holding pens, and now they say just the like time budget of the cows changed, and they have like extra 3 hours that they can just like lay down because they don't need to be moved around, and just like having 3 more hours for them to be laying down really adds up to cow comfort and potentially milk production.
So regarding the results of this study, which are going to be officially published coming up pretty soon, right?
Yes.
what would you be your recommendation to dairy producers that are considering investing in robotics? I know all dairies have different circumstances, but particularly, I know you're coming from New York, but
Yeah.
based on your time in California, what are your thoughts?
So one thing that was like very clear to me when we did this study is that the economics are not very clear, and that's because each farm has its own, circumstance and its own goals as far as like where they want to be, in 20 years. So I think for farmers that are considering or arrived in a point that they really want to upgrade their parlor or anything like that, don't like don't not consider robots because you think it's very expensive. Try to visit farms that have it, talk to dealers, actually make the calculations from like all the options you have, and try to bring it to your reality and like what it's gonna give you and what's gonna be bad about it, and try to really like do your research, because maybe you think it's expensive now, but labor is an issue, and sometimes when you consider like the amount of money on that on the long term, this can be a factor that can kind of affect. And this is my experience on when I was here in California, but also now that I'm in New York, because New York and California are very different, but we have like very similar things as far as the consumer pressure on the farms. So we have like New York is also going through like changing labor laws, and this is making a lot of farmers consider robots, because when they really do the calculations on how much they will save in labor on the long term, it kind of makes sense for them in their reality to add robots. So I think that's an individual thing. I don't think robots is for everyone, but I think if you if you think it's an interesting thing for your farm, take the time to look and do the calculations, because it may be worth it.
Right, and things, they're really, you can try to wait for things to get better, but things are only going to get harder, it seems like, especially in California. So if, that ROI is kind of there's some uncertainty regarding that and when and the timing on that, but overall, if you're really going to be committed to the future of the dairy industry, this is the way things are moving, it sounds like. So definitely consider, read more about these things in California Dairy Magazine. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.